Danielle from Against All Grain. I'm taking a quick break in my Thanksgiving prep to finish answering a few of the questions that were coming in on my Q&A on Facebook the other night. Thank you all so much for participating. It was so fun, and that 30 minutes went so fast. I hope I was able to answer a lot of your questions. Sorry I couldn't get to them all, but I wanted to cover the few that are coming in frequently this Thanksgiving, as a lot of you are switching to paleo and grain-free. I want to try to send you into tomorrow with as little stress as possible and as much of a feeling of confidence as you prepare your dinner. So stuffing was one of the biggest questions. First of all, people asked if I had a recipe. Yes, I do. It's in my Against All Grain Thankful ebook that you can find on Kindle for $1.99. Go to the Amazon store and just search Against All Grain Thankful, or you can get the PDF version on my blog, which you can print and share and do whatever you'd like with. So my stuffing uses bread. I don't know about you, but a paleo stuffing that just uses meat and vegetables is just not a stuffing. It's just meat and vegetables. I use my cashew bread, which you can find on my blog as well as in my book. If you don't want to spend the money on cashew butter for a huge crowd, if you're cooking for a big crowd, go ahead and just sub in 1-to-1 almond butter. It's a lot cheaper. The flavors are still going to be there. It's just as good. Or if you are just now starting to plan your Thanksgiving and you haven't had a chance to bake 2 loaves of my bread, I really like the gluten-free Canyon Bakehouse bread that you can find at Whole Foods and some other gluten-free markets. It's what I buy for Asher. I personally can't eat it because it does have grains and I just can't tolerate them. But if you feel like you can have some grains, once a year for Thanksgiving, it is still gluten-free. I think that the ingredients are the cleanest out of any store-bought gluten-free bread I've seen. So I have tried it in the stuffing for a big crowd when I didn't feel like making my cashew bread, and it held up perfectly. So go ahead and go and grab that if you don't have time to make my loaf of bread. My stuffing has apples and sausage and of course the celery and onions and garlic and tons of fresh herbs in it. If you have some great chicken stock or turkey stock, that will help keep it moist as it bakes. Don't bake it inside the cavity of the turkey. It just doesn't hold up well enough. It gets too soggy. Even before I went grain-free, I was never a huge fan of cavity stuffed stuffing. I think that it gets too mushy, so I've always baked it in a separate baking dish. There are instructions on how to do this in the ebook, and I love to dot it with some butter or ghee on top to help keep it really moist and also to brown the top like you're used to with your typical gluten-filled stuffing. So the second biggest question of the night with the Q&A was how to thicken gravy. This is a very good question. It's one of those things that just is not easily done when you go grain-free. I've tried all of the different thickening agents. I've tried arrowroot, I've tried coconut flour, I've tried tapioca. I really don't like the consistency or the flavor that any of them give. My dad used to be the gravy maker. He was the one that always made the gravy on Thanksgiving, and he used cornstarch, and it was always really thick and full of flavor from using the drippings in the pan. So what I started doing was actually just pureeing vegetables. I started doing it when I made soups, and I thought it would be an amazing idea for gravy. So I scatter onions and garlic and celery around the turkey so that they get nice and roasted and they kind of cook in the juices from the turkey. And then you take those as well as the drippings from the pan, make sure you skim off the fat, and puree them really well with some great homemade chicken stock or turkey stock. If your turkey is brined, there's a pretty good chance that you won't even need to salt the gravy, but do it to taste at the end. You can also add in some fresh herbs like thyme or parsley, which will also help the flavor. Make sure if you have carrots in the bottom of the roasting pan that you don't throw them in there, otherwise your gravy will turn orange. Now, one of the other questions that I get frequently at the Q&A, as well as just all the time on my blog, is why are my almond flour baked goods sinking in the middle and why are they soggy? I've said it time and time again in the book, on the blog, and everywhere I possibly can. I try to shout it from the rooftops. It has to do with the type of almond flour that you use. Make sure your almond flour is blanched, skinless, and very finely ground to almost a powder. My favorite brands are Welby or Honeyville. If you're using those, you are sure to have foolproof almond flour baked goods, especially if you're using my recipes from my books, because that is what I've tested them with. Any other store-bought kind is typically too coarse, usually makes things sink in the middle and makes them soggy. So if you're having those problems, check the kind of almond flour you're using, and I promise you, if you upgrade to the good stuff, you will be so much more satisfied with your grain-free baked goods. Happy Thanksgiving, you guys. I hope that you are enjoying all of the recipes from Thankful, and if Thanksgiving has already passed for you, or if you are not celebrating it because you're not in the US, these recipes will make for any great holiday feast. Good luck tomorrow in your grain-free cooking.